Hi there, I'm Nafisa Latic. This is Across the Balkans. And this week, ethnic tension exploded in Montenegro when the Serbian Orthodox Church there enthroned a new head bishop. On the surface, it seemed like just a religious ritual. But protesters saw it as a deliberate provocation by Serbs against Montenegrins and their independence. In their efforts to stop the ceremony from going ahead, protesters barricaded the city, and the weekend ended in clashes, tear gas, and dozens of injuries. The Prime Minister called the protest an act of terrorism and vowed to prosecute those responsible. But opponents of the church say the institution serves Serbian interests more than Montenegrins, and they accuse both the government and the church of being too close to Belgrade. Mirjana Miladinovic got caught up in the action covering this story for us, and here is her report.
Do nas nije. Ne čekamo nikoga da povrijedimo. Čekamo samo da odbranimo. Mislim da je to naše pravo. Ipak smo Crnogorci. Želimo svoju Crnogorsku pravoslavnu crkvu.
A mislim, to je smešno. Oni su smešni. A ne mogu ni nas da zaustave.
It was a wild weekend in Montenegro. Protesters tried to stop the inauguration of the new head of the country's Serbian Orthodox Church, but they couldn't do it. The ceremony went ahead with the help of the military. The controversial Bishop Pjanic II was flown straight to Cetinje Monastery under the protection of police special forces. Inside, everything went according to plan, but outside was chaos. Protesters clashed with the police, who fired tear gas. 37 people were injured, among them 7 policemen. 14 people were arrested, and the roads were blocked for almost 2 days. I'm Mirjana Miladinovic, and I'm trying to find out how a religious enthronement ended a bloodshed. In order to do that, I first had to attend the welcoming ceremony for the Serbian Orthodox Patriarch from Belgrade, who arrived in Montenegro's capital Podgorica on Saturday.
I'm in front of the church here in Podgorica capital, where people have welcomed the Patriarch of Serbian Orthodox Church. I came here to see what brought them here.
There were loads of Serbian flags, hats and t-shirts, and people were chanting things that weren't actually connected to church.
Koliko godina nas ugnjetavaju. Ne smeš da kažeš da si Srbin, Srpkinja. Ne, to ne smeš. Ali ja slavim slavu od kad sam došla u Budu, znači ja se ne plašim, ne direm nikoga. Zastava meni srpska stoji u mojoj kući, znači možda dođe kogod hoće. Moja zastava stoji, ja je ne sklanjam. To na Cetinju je strašno. A mislim, to je smešno. Oni su smešni. A ne mogu ni nas da zaustave.
Izjašnjavam se kao Srbin. Žao mi je to što se dešava na Cetinju. Žao mi je. Treba da vlada mir, ne treba da se mrzimo, ne treba da se dijelimo politički. Nego se dijelimo na ljude i na neljude, a ne politički da se dijelimo. Žao mi je. Neki mi je Bog u pomoći.
Ne damo Svetinje, Svetinje ćemo braniti sa svojim životom. Trebamo da poštujemo i katoličku i pravoslavnu i crnogorsku, ako imaju crnogorsku za oni crkvu. Izvolite, napravite, niko vam neće smetati. A vjera mora se poštovati, svačija vjera.
After waiting all day, the crowd was excited to hear from the Serbian Patriarch.
Kako čeznemo i želimo iz sveg srca, iz dubine svoje duše, da u miru i u ljubavi Hristovoj zagrlimo onu našu braću koja su nam najbliža, koja su nam rođena, a koja danas nas ovde sabrane na ovom skupu ili ne prepoznaju ili ne priznaju za svoju braću i nazivaju nas najpogrdnijim imenima.
The Patriarch asked the crowd if they were happy to install Pjanic as the head of Montenegro's Serbian Orthodox Church.
ja vas ovde sabrane pitam da li je dostojan vladika Joanikije da sede na tron Svetog Petra Cetinjskog.
And with that, the decision was made. So my next stop was Cetinje. Cetinje is a tiny city, but as the former royal capital, it's the heart of Montenegrin identity. Meanwhile, the Serbian Orthodox Church is a refuge for those who say that Montenegro is a nation does not exist and that they are all Serbs. When Montenegro lost independence in 1918 and became one country with Serbia, all churches became Serbian Orthodox. When Montenegro regained independence almost a century later, the churches remained Serbian. That's not a problem for about half the population who think that's the way things should be. But for other half, it is.
And right here, some 30 kilometers away from Podgorica, completely different scene. Orthodox Montenegrins gathered here and won't let pass representatives of Serbian Orthodox Church to get the inauguration here in Cetinje Monastery.
Every entrance to the city was barricaded. Here I got the feeling that a conflict was about to happen, and Montenegrins were ready for it. So I decided to spend the night there, at the barricades, to talk to some of them while I had the chance. There were people who had walked 6 hours from Podgorica just to be there.
Zato što volimo našu državu. I zato što ne bismo da Cetinje bude na neki način opoganjeno i tako dalje. Mi smo slobodarski narod i hoćemo to da sačuvamo.
Pak da nam našu kuću ne uređuje niko sa strane, nego mi sami. Mislim da smo toliko inteligentni da nam ne treba niko sa strane. Dovoljni smo mi ovdje da biramo mi naše popove i naše mitropolite, a ne da nam ih Beograd bira ili bilo ko drugi.
Moralo je doći do toga, ali oni ne žele mir, oni žele krv. To su pokazali mnogo puta do sad, tako da jednostavno do nas nije. Mi večeras ovdje ne čekamo nikoga da povrijedimo, čekamo samo da odbranimo. Mislim da je to naše pravo. Ipak smo Crnogorci, želimo svoju Crnogorsku pravoslavnu crkvu.
Listening to the plans here, I felt like I was watching some old Western movie, like a showdown was on the horizon. Things had been mostly peaceful until a law was passed in 2019 that stated all churches within Montenegro's borders belong to the state of Montenegro. Orthodox Serbs began protests across the country demanding authorities to withdraw the law. Then the party that had ruled Montenegro for 3 decades lost elections. The new government, which had campaigned on repealing the law, did as they had promised as soon as they were in power. So the country ended up with the Prime Minister, Dragan Krapovic, who supports the Serbian Orthodox Church, and the President, Milo Đukanovic, who wants to help the Montenegrin Church gain back its independence. Sunday morning, Inauguration Day, and plans to block the ceremony were taking shape. But of course, the police were making plans as well. They came to a main barricade together with fire trucks, police vans and excavators to let the protesters think they will try to break the barricade. But police didn't break that barricade. They decided to transport priests via military helicopter, and they breached the weakest point at the other entrance and got into the city, where the fighting began. So the people who were gathered here set the tires on fire to block the police, and they all went to the city center. And I followed.
We will see what will happen here in the next few hours. I think it won't be actually easy to be there. It's actually right now very, very hard to breathe. First injuries reported, so that's just it for now. I have to go now.
It ended like no one wanted, with the country even more divided. And Montenegrins promise their struggle won't end here, that it has only just begun. No one knows when or how this conflict can be resolved, but all know that after this weekend, the divisions are deeper than ever before. Mirjana Miladinovic, TRT World, Cetinje, Montenegro.
Dragan Krapovic is a member of parliament and the vice president of the Democratic Montenegro Party. He joins us from the city of Budva, where he used to be the mayor. Dragan, thanks so much for being with us on Across the Balkans. I appreciate your time. Now, you were at the welcoming ceremony in Podgorica yourself with other government officials. Was it worth it, Dragan, and was it a good plan to hold the ceremony in Cetinje, having in mind what we have seen, people being arrested, people being injured, scared?
First of all, good day from Montenegro to you, thank you, and to your viewers, of course, and thank you for the invite. Well, the church, by constitution of Montenegro, is separated from the state, so it was the church's choice to do the enthronement in Cetinje. The state was obligated to give support to that act of enthronement, and this is how it came to play out in Cetinje the other day. Unfortunately, we have seen scenes that are not good for everybody in Montenegro. We have seen scenes that is not scenes of democratic, of peaceful acceptance of something that is a religious act under the constitution. The church has the right to have that act wherever they see fit, and the Cetinje Monastery is the center of the Metropolia Montenegrin, Metropolia, which is a part of the Serbian Orthodox Church. So it had to happen in Cetinje because the church, that was the church's choice, and the state had a duty to make that happen.
But could have the government handled it better, and who is to blame for the unrest we saw over the weekend?
Well, the analysis about the whole weekend in Cetinje are ongoing now, and some conclusions will be made soon enough. Of course, maybe certain things would have been done differently, but former party who was in power with President Đukanović have openly made unrest in Cetinje, have made barricades, have made attack on police and so on. During the first day, Saturday, the police did not act in any way over to the demonstrants, and in Sunday they had to make sure that the enthronement in the Cetinje Monastery could be done in peaceful way with the most less consequences on that day. This was done, I think, in a proper manner by the police. Those measures are in accordance with law, in accordance with the Constitution of Montenegro. This is not something that we are happy about, but this had to be done, in my opinion.
What responsibility do officials from the Serbian Orthodox Church have in all this? Haven't they sparked more divisions by denying Montenegro statehood for years and denying the Montenegrin people itself? So obviously they were not welcomed in Cetinje anymore.
This is a historical debate. This is a historical debate about nations and historical and political movements all across Montenegro. I wouldn't say that the Serbian Orthodox Church does not recognize Montenegro as an independent state. I would say it does recognize Montenegro as an independent state. About the nation and so on, this is something that is an ongoing debate in the Montenegrin society, which is very much divided for decades now. So I would leave that debate to the historians and us politicians to think about the actual moment and the future. I really strongly believe that this is something that had to be done in Cetinje on Sunday, because, as I've said, the consequences of not going forward with that act would be much greater than the consequences we've seen in the last couple of days. Of course, Some of the people in Cetinje had a right to protest. This is their constitutional right, and I feel that this is totally okay in accordance with the law. But some elements who are tied with the criminal structures, who are tied with political structures, who are now in opposition, they had a different agenda, that is for sure. They had a different agenda, and that agenda did not have anything to do with the nation debate about Montenegrin Serbs. We don't have to do about religions. This was something that was going forward with obstructing the fight against organized crime and corruption in Montenegro. I think the political elements who were inspiring the events in Cetinje had that kind of agenda. They did not have in mind any religious, political, or human rights issues.
Dragan, the protesters say the government and the church itself has strong links to Belgrade. I want to play Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić and his comment following the crisis, so we can comment on it.
Je preko 90% stanovništva.
Cetinje is a town where some 90% of people are oriented against the Serbian Orthodox Church, where there is hate towards everyone else who does not belong to the Montenegrin people. I would even add that this is not a real hate, it's hate that is induced by certain politicians in Montenegro. So it was quite logical to expect this is what happened there.
So why are people in Cetinje, as Vučić said there, against the Serbian Orthodox Church?
I'm not sure that the percentage that Mr. Vučić has said is right, but there are some people that are opposing the Serbian Orthodox Church in Cetinje, and of course through the last couple of decades they have been opposing also Mr. Đukanović's and the wars that have been led on the Balkans. Cetinje is a historical center of Montenegro and a very specific town. The divisions that are going on in the Montenegrin society have been very much inspired by the political leadership, the former political leadership with Mr. Đukanović ahead in Montenegro, and now it has reached some point that it has to be resolved in this or that manner. For us as a government, for us as the majority in the parliament, we need to have reconciliation between the Montenegrins and the Serbs. We need to have reconciliation and recognition of the canonic represented churches. Of course, everybody has the right to have their own opinion, everybody has the right to protest, but nobody has the right to break constitution or jeopardize someone else's rights, religious rights or other. So this is the only motive that we had in mind.
You're mentioning, Dragan, you're mentioning there the president Milo Đukanović. He was with the protesters in Cetinje. This was also unprecedented, the president protesting himself. Let's listen what he had to say following the ceremony.
This was a Pyrrhic victory of the government that ruthlessly serves the imperial interests of Serbia and the Serbian Orthodox Church, which is a striking fist of Serbian nationalism, all against Montenegro. We could say that this is the end of the respect that the Serbian Orthodox Church had in the Montenegrin capital and in our country.
So what is the future of the Serbian Orthodox Church in Montenegro if it's perceived as an institution that pushes more for the interests of Serbia than those of Montenegrins?
I'm not sure that is the correct premises, because Serbian Orthodox Church is canonically away from the state of Montenegro. They have their own constitution, they have their own manner of and laws that they have been acting. As far as Mr. Đukanović is concerned, I think the messages that he have pushed through in the last couple of days are messages of a defeated man. He's someone who has inspired divisions in Montenegro through the last few decades. He was on the totally other side up until 15 years ago. Now he's on this side, so this is something that is political, I think, debacle of Mr. Đukanović's final political debacle in Montenegro. Of course, the divisions stay, and it is our duty to make those divisions and the ethnical distance between Montenegrins, between Serbs, between minorities in Montenegro, lesser and lesser every day. This is something we are going to do, and contrary to what Mr. Djukanovic wants.
Right, so where does this leave the country now? We've seen how it easily escalated over the weekend. It obviously shows deep divisions inside the Montenegrin society. Will Serbs and Montenegrins ever be able to overcome these divisions?
I believe that we are going to overcome this. I believe that things are going to be calmer in the period ahead of us rather than escalate to some other unacceptable degree of violence and conflict. I think the Montenegrin society has enough potential to reconciliate between ourselves and to stand together, as I said, with our first goals. This is fight against organized crime and corruption, this is sustainable development, this is green transition, and this is membership in European Union. I think the vast majority of Montenegrin people support those goals and support this majority in making those goals happen.
And Dragan, just briefly at the end, how do you call yourself? Do you call yourself a Montenegrin or a Serb or both? Let's explain this to international audience.
I call myself citizen of Montenegro, and this is the perspective that everybody of us should regard the ways. How someone feels nationally, how someone feels religiously, this is totally their intimate right. So I feel that we should all call ourselves citizens of Montenegro, that we should be loyal to our country, and that we should contribute to the peace, as I've said, reconciliation, and the progress of this country. I think, as I've said, that the vast majority of people in Montenegro, however they think about themselves nationally, thinks that in that way.
Dragan, thanks so much for being our guest. Dragan Krapovic, they're a member of parliament and the vice president of the Democratic Montenegro Party. He was in Budva for us. As we've seen, the Cetinje Monastery was at the center of this weekend's clashes. It has a long history as a symbol of the spirit of the Montenegrin people. It's been home to the country's bishops for more than 500 years. Let's take a look at why it's so important. Now for something completely different. Don't panic, we have Pjanic. Well, that was the message from the Turkish football club Besiktas as the Black Eagles confirmed the signing of Bosnian international player Mirjana Pjanic in one of the biggest scoops of the transfer window. TRT World Sports presenter Charlotte Bates has all the details from Besiktas Stadium.
Yes, it's official. Mirjana Pjanic is moving to Turkey. Besiktas have confirmed the signing of the 31-year-old midfielder from Barcelona on a season-long loan, looking to replace Serbian Adem Ljajic. The Turkish giant secured one of the biggest transfer scoops in the Turkish Super League this season. Now, this is a player who was bought for $71 million from Juventus just 2 years ago. And although he didn't have too much success in Spain, he only made 30 appearances across all competitions. He didn't even record 1 goal or assist during his time there, but his experience at Juventus was a completely different story. A serial winner, he claimed 4 straight titles in Serie A, and the reaction in Turkey has been one of utter excitement. We've seen what he can do on the field. Now it's just a question of whether he'll be able to reproduce that fine form that we saw at Juve here at Besiktas. But one thing is for certain, the club will be looking at this new signing, hoping he can give them a boost as they head into the group stages of the Champions League, whether it be facing Dortmund, Ajax and Sporting. But it's not just Pjanic who joins the club. Michy Batshuayi also comes on loan from Chelsea, and although he didn't get too much playing time at the club, he has a wealth of experience from the likes of Marseille, Dortmund, Valencia. So Besiktas will be coming into this tournament brimming with confidence, really looking to put their new talents to the test.
Thanks for watching this episode of Across the Balkans. Hope to see you next time. Bye-bye for now.